Well, hello everyone and welcome to part two of Plant Pathologist looks at the health of para-urban agriculture in San Diego County and what it will take to sustain its future. And so today, this afternoon, for the next hour, I'm going to be covering that topic, and there will be a little bit of a review of what we covered last month in April. But basically, part two is a focus on the successful models of healthy para-urban farms and the foundation required to sustain them. There are going to be two types of farming operations I'm going to focus on, and we'll get into that shortly. But let me go ahead and review a little bit about what I mean, or what the definition of a para-urban agriculture is. It's defined as agricultural practices within and around cities, which compete for resources, land, water, energy, labor, that could also serve other purposes to satisfy the requirements of the urban population. And that comes from the United Nations definition from the Food and Agriculture Organization. So as a plant pathologist, I wanted to give you my perspective. It was interesting. I was a plant pathologist with the University of California and farm advisor up in Santa Clara County many years ago. And as such, as a plant pathologist, I was responsible for studying plant diseases and the various aspects of these diseases, the organisms, the environmental conditions that create and lead to the problems of disease in plants, and the mechanisms and factors that cause it, and the interactions, particularly between the causal agents and the plant, and the methods for managing and controlling plant diseases. So typically when we think of diseases, we think of either human, animal, or plant diseases. But if we look at a plant disease situation, if you were to take a class in plant pathology, this would be Plant Pathology 101, and it's called the plant disease triangle. And what it shows is that there are three components to disease occurring in nature. One, you have to have a susceptible host, you have to have a virulent pathogen, one that's capable of causing suffering to the plant, and then a favorable environment in favor of the pathogen over the host. And so all three of those conditions have to be present in order for disease to actually manifest or express itself. If any one of those three is interrupted, and or you control and change the favorable environment to an unfavorable environment for the pathogen, you have no disease. Or if you attack the pathogen and reduce its population, you have no disease. Or if you develop a resistance within the host itself, you have no disease. So if we can control any one of the three legs of that triangle, we can actually avoid the presence and the expression of disease in plants. Now let's apply it to para-urban agriculture, which is, I'm taking liberties here, but I wanted to share with you, when I became a plant pathologist up in Santa Clara County, I realized very quickly that the biggest disease I was dealing with was the loss, not of plants, but the loss of agriculture in general in Silicon Valley. And so I define it as a disease that is prevalent among urban population centers due to adverse competitive conditions, attitudes, and/or apathy towards agriculture. That's not to say that people don't value agriculture, they're just indifferent to it. Apathetic means basically you don't pay attention to it. It's not part of your consciousness. So a para-urban agriculture disease triangle would include, in my definition as a pathologist, a susceptible host, which would be the farmers and the nurserymen themselves who are trying to farm within the sphere and the fringe of an urban population, or in many cases within the urban center itself. It's also the virulent pathogen would be this human indifference, this apathy that exists within that community in which the farmer and the nurseryman exist. And then the last component, the environment, a favorable environment to the demise of a farm or a farmer and a nurseryman is the competing needs and interests of that urban population. So that's what we're going to be talking about, and we're going to give some examples of two agricultural enterprises. But before we do that, let's go a little bit further into the each of those legs of the triangle. So the susceptible host is that farmer nurseryman, and the question we were faced with is, how do farmers and nurserymen in a urban environment develop the resiliency that allows them to coexist within and around the urban environments? The virulent pathogen, human indifference. How do farmers and nurserymen in peri-urban environments build supportive and sustainable urban relationships committed to their mutual success, not only the success of the farmer and the nurseryman, but the success of the urban community itself? And then the environment, the competing needs and interests. How do farmers and nurserymen in peri-urban environments directly and locally address the needs and interests of their urban neighbors? So those are the three components that we're going to be talking about. And I'm going to give you some examples here shortly of farms that are doing just that. So peri-urban agricultural disease, the disease and loss of a culture built upon agronomic practices occurs when people become disconnected and therefore truly indifferent, not only to where and how their food and fiber, nursery and landscape plants are produced, but also disconnected from those that are responsible for producing these products locally. And the benefits of a culture directly associated with farming and what it contributes to urban life are typically no longer recognized, appreciated, or considered relevant in the lives of the local urban community. That's what leads to the death, if you will, the disease and the loss of agriculture in peri-urban environments. So if we look at San Diego County and what could be truly defined as peri-urban agriculture, we have the highest concentration of certified organic farmers in the country. That was as of 2020 in the ag report here for San Diego. We are ranked #1 still in California and in the nation in the production value of avocados, nursery and floriculture based on studies by University of California at Division of Ag and Natural Resources. There are more farms and small farms, believe it or not, in San Diego County than any other county in the United States, with a total of over 5,000 farms, in which 70% are considered small scale. And the average size then in San Diego County of our farm community is around 4 acres. There are certainly exceptions to this, but we are essentially a county of small peri-urban farms. And what is the foundation of a healthy agriculture? So if we're going to talk about the disease of agriculture, the loss of agriculture in peri-urban environments, what does a healthy local environment or agriculture look like? And it is built upon the healthy local soils and adequate supply of quality water. And I probably should add also the beautiful climate we have here in San Diego, which lends itself so well to farming year round. So a healthy soil then provides a number of benefits that I just list here, and we listed it last month as well, but that improved soil tilt and structure is so critical because that gives rise and creates the home for the biology, which that soil biology is the heart of what is now being termed regenerative agriculture, not just sustainable. Because if we sustain something, we want it to be able to be regenerative, full of life and full of energy. And that comes from fostering a soil that builds soil biology. And then we want it to conserve the water. We want it to capture water, to absorb water like a sponge. And we want irrigation efficiency to be a part of the use of our water supply that's so precious and nothing can happen without it. So carbon storage in the soil becomes another key component of a healthy agriculture in an urban environment, what we call climate smart farming. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then fertilizer, pesticide reduction and replacement. The healthier the soil, the more resistant it is to pests and diseases and insect pressure, and the less synthetic or off-farm fertilizer required. In many cases, none at all, if you can get all the components balanced. That's another topic altogether. And then reduce pollution of our watersheds. We fail to realize that healthy soils are the very filter at which our rainwater flows through, and if our soils are contaminated and unhealthy, our watershed will be unhealthy. So that's a really critical component of healthy soils and of the role that farming and agriculture play in an urban environment. And then healthy local food security and the resiliency of a community to feed itself. And lastly, that leads to healthier communities and society. So what's the key resource that manages these vital resources and benefits we just talked about? Well, that comes down to the farmers and nurserymen themselves and the communities they serve. And I added, the last presentation, I did not add the communities they serve, but you're going to find in this presentation that's absolutely instrumental to the survival and the health of the farmers and the nurserymen, the communities in which they live and serve. So healthy farmers and nurserymen and these communities require a decent standard of living, a strong local political and community support structure, available quality land and water to farm, and educational support for financial planning, marketing, and business development. All of these go into creating this healthy local agricultural community. So what, say, decent standard of living? I'll leave that for another discussion. It really depends, doesn't it? Everyone has a different definition of what's a standard of living for them that they would desire and hope for. Many, if not most, American farmers depend actually on a second income off farm to create this decent standard of living. Recent USDA data suggests that the American farmers depend on second jobs for anywhere from 10 to 83% of their incomes, depending on what they raise and what they farm. So off-farm income is a vital component of creating a healthy farmer and nurseryman and a healthy standard of living. And we're going to talk about that. This goes into that component of a host. The host is a susceptible farmer or nurseryman trying to survive in an urban environment. And this is a component of giving resiliency to that host, that farmer, and that nurseryman. Without these additional incomes, and you'll see some play into this as we go through the case studies, are a critical component of why farms survive in urban environments. So the two examples of healthy farming enterprises in San Diego County I'm going to be talking about this afternoon are the Coastal Roots Farm in Encinitas, California, and Grangetto Ranches out of Escondido. And so let's start with Coastal Roots Farm. The farm is a nonprofit Jewish community farm and education center that cultivates healthy, connected communities by integrating sustainable agriculture, food justice with ancient Jewish wisdom. Notice the emphasis on community, and that'll keep coming up in this discussion of Coastal Roots Farm. It's critical to their very purpose for existing. So this is their advertisement and kind of a picture of the farm itself in Encinitas. We'll talk a little bit more about how they evolved. They're located in Encinitas on approximately 17 acres of land. The farm consists of vegetable production fields, educational farm and gardens, a food forest, chickens, and compost operations. And here's a visual of the site. It's the site of the old Ecce Poinsettia property that was sold to the Leichtag Foundation. And part of that development program was the Coastal Roots Farm. And you can see in the foreground there, the actual food forest where they're actually growing not only tree crops, but also vegetables in between those rows. It's a very unique concept. Their vision that drives everything is a world in which every community comes together to grow and share healthy food, care for the land, help their neighbors, and strengthen the connections they have with each other. And you notice they say with everybody, all communities. They're located in a unique neighborhood at the center of what was once the flower growing capital of the world, Encinitas, And the farm is contiguous to 7 other nonprofit organizations, all offering multi-generational education and community building, which together form the Encinitas Environmental Education Collaborative, or what they call the E3. So note again the consistent emphasis on community building. So these are the members of the E3 Collaborative. The Leichtag Foundation, which was a foundation started by the Leichtag family that purchased the property from Equipoinsettias and opened it up to these other organizations and other entities. A part of it is the Encinitas Union School District Farm Lab, the Magdalena Ecke YMCA, the San Diego Botanic Garden is another part of the collaborative, the San Diego Heritage Museum, and the Seacrest Village Retirement Community, of all things. So now we start to understand how a nonprofit farm coexists within an urban environment and continues to grow and thrive. So we're going to look at now how Coastal Roots Farm combats the peri-urban agricultural disease. They address the virulent pathogen of human indifference by offering the surrounding community, and I should say communities, resources and values they support and desire. And then they create an environment, another leg of the disease triangle, that rather than competing with the needs and interests of an urban community, they offer healthy and life-sustaining solutions to meet those needs. So where the pathogen exists, they offer community and they offer values that are supported by that community. And where the environment competes, they offer solutions and opportunities to meet the needs and the interests of those communities that they coexist in. This all creates the health at which this organization continues to thrive. As a nonprofit, they have a dedicated staff of professionals focused on fundraising to identify, secure, and manage the funds necessary to support the mutually desired goals and values for themselves and for their donors. So this is something that's really critical in a community-based agricultural organization like Coastal Roots Farm, that they actually have people whose sole purpose is to continually connect with their donors, to look for new funding sources to support their community development and involvement. And so here's an example of, or a photo, I should say, of that Coastal Roots team that includes these development specialists along with the production staff. I was fortunate to interview folks there. Adam McCurdy is the head of the agricultural operation. He's there at the back row with the glasses, and was instrumental in sharing with me some of both the successes and the challenges and how they're put together and how they thrive. So they consistently, another key way to combat peri-urban agricultural diseases, they consistently communicate and market the many benefits of their work and events to the local community and to their donor organizations. And they generate revenue from the sale of a portion of their agricultural production, as well as offering services like donating some of this as food to disadvantaged communities, after school programs, farm, school, and camp tours, and special events to augment their donations and funding sources. So it's a multi-faceted approach towards supporting and building community within the Coastal Roots infrastructure. So here's an example of just some of their marketing material. This was with a Chef's Works Spotlight. They work with the local chefs and reach out into the community in so many different ways. They also have the weekly food farm stand, where some of the produce is offered to the general public. You can go there. They post it on their website. I think it's 2 days a week, I believe, where they sell their produce. They even sell fresh farm eggs there that they raise locally. And so this also goes toward continuing to support their efforts to give to the poor and to the communities that are food insecure. Here's some of the production from the beds. Everything is organically certified, and that's the quality is a high priority for them. And so all the food they grow there has to meet very high nutritional and environmental standards. They have farm tours on a regular basis, as well as school tours, and that we mentioned that. That's another way of connecting with the community. And they also have their set of challenges. In talking to Adam, he shared with me one of the heaviest administrative overheads and the paperwork associated with it comes from the environmental regulations and the maintenance of their organic certifications. And so we'll talk about a little bit about what can be done to help, suggestions on how we address some of these challenges that they deal with. All of that overhead takes away from their day-to-day operations and can become a significant burden, not only for Coastal Roots Farm, but for every farm that I'm aware of that coexists within these urban environments. Recruiting and training and retaining experienced labor familiar with the demands of regenerative farming and processing of produce and farm products on an income that competes with higher urban salaries associated with non-farming jobs. It's extremely difficult to find young people oftentimes who are willing to make the sacrifices it takes to be part of an organization like this when they're competing with other high-paying jobs in high technology, biotechnology, and what have you. So here's an example of some of the training that goes on, and much of it also involves volunteers. So here are some examples of possible solutions to these challenges they face. Local support from government or community administrators to help with streamlining and managing the paperwork associated with these environmental regulations and the maintenance of their organic certifications. Oftentimes, regulatory organizations do not realize the tremendous burden financially they put and time-wise they put on farms. And if there was some way for local support or government and community involvement to assist with this, it would be a huge, huge benefit to these farming organizations. And then the creation of a local San Diego, for example, San Diego County Young Farmers Nurseryman Development and Benefit Center, in addition to their ongoing volunteer intern program for addressing the educational, housing, and financial challenges facing young adults interested in pursuing careers in the local agricultural community. I currently do not know of any such center or organization, although the Farm Bureau has a program for young farmers. One of the biggest challenges is the benefits that need to be provided by the community to help these young people with some of their housing and financial challenges if they are to pursue a local agricultural career. So these are just some ideas I throw out and some areas that are challenges to organizations like Coastal Roots Farm. So in summary, Coastal Roots Farm is all about nourishing community. A nonprofit without this community connection will not survive. And so it says from the ground up, and that's true. It's from the ground up, which in the ground in which Coastal Roots exists is an urban ground. It's a urban environment, and they understand it intimately and are meeting the needs of that community. And that's why they continue to thrive and grow and expand and offer these services, as well as a value system that we all so desperately need and cherish. So the next farm I'm going to talk about, that I think addresses a healthy example of what it takes to survive in a para-urban environment, is the Grangetto Ranches Incorporated, located, it's a San Diego County farm, co-owned by Eddie Grangetto and his brother and sister, consisting of 80 acres of avocados, 20 acres of citrus, plus some wine grapes in the heart of Escondido. The farm was started by their father in the 1950s, purchasing portions of land a little at a time that now make up the ranches. The families actually, this is a for-profit enterprise, in this case, very different than Coastal Roots Farm. The families all live on the property while Eddie and his wife Karen manage the day-to-day operations in order to generate the revenue necessary to keep and sustain this farm. So here's an example of a photograph, or is a photograph of the farm. Avocados still remains one of the most important crops to the survival of agriculture in and around San Diego. Like many farmers in the United States, Eddie also works a second job as a crop consultant, handling outside sales and consulting for Grangetto's Farm and Garden Supply, a company founded by their father and currently managed by his brother, Kevin. When interviewed by the Climate Science Alliance back in 2020, Eddie was asked why he farms, and he commented, "Farming provides a business and lifestyle that suits our abilities and our connection to the land." So here's an example of that off-farm, if you will, enterprise that Eddie's father started so many years ago that is also critical for the survival of the farm, avocado ranch that they now farm. And so what is the biggest Peri-Urban egg disease Grangetto ranches faces? I asked Eddie that in an interview, and he said, urban communities are ignorant of the contributions of local agriculture. And another way of putting it is they're indifferent to it. They don't understand it. They don't even know what local agriculture is contributing to the quality of their life. And he also mentioned that it's easier to compete with other area growers in the avocado market and citrus market than the urban interest in foreign competition, meaning it's not easy. This is not for the faint of heart, but there are things Grangetto's has done over the years that address Peri-Urban agricultural disease. They address the virulent pathogen of human indifference by engaging with their local community around the issue of the agricultural use of recycled water to supplement municipal potable water, providing the city of Escondido a vehicle to address their current and future water needs. So this gets the attention of the urban population when you make that connection. They create an environment that, rather than competing with the needs and interests of the urban community, they offer multiple benefits and solutions to meet many urban needs. So here is the waste treatment plant in Escondido that Grangetto's, along with a group of growers called the Escondido Growers for Agricultural Preserve, EGAP, in 2012 engaged with the local urban leadership on the importance and benefits of agriculture as a key business and environmental services contributor to the community. In the process of doing that, and here's their logo, and they are prominently displayed on the Farm Bureau's website, so you can go to some of the, I think it's under resources, you can click on it, and they have a whole section describing the work of this fantastic group. And what they did is they were able to work with the local urban leaders, and they see a future for Escondido agriculture that looks like this. It will be an amalgam of larger enterprises that include avocados, nursery, and various tree and vine crops that depend on lower cost water to thrive. Additionally, specialty crops such as hemp, herbs, vineyards, and greenhouse vegetables and aquaculture may even become more popular for a variety of reasons. The ag tech may also arrive. With the emphasis on Escondido as an agricultural hub, the opportunities for our city to become an incubator of agriculture-related business possibilities is endless. That's their vision of the future of agriculture. And without that vision, it's difficult to make progress and to survive in an urban environment. And the key then to the future of meeting these Escondido agricultural needs rests with the city leaders. Local agriculture needs a permanent seat on a commission or board of the city of Escondido, and this would allow all the citizens of our city to benefit from the energy of local agriculture. So the cure for much of Peri-Urban agricultural disease will be found right here in these city call meetings with the leaders of our cities, addressing issues like where are we going to get the water for the future needs of our community? Well, maybe we can divert the wastewater, treat it so the quality is there, divert it to the farms, which then makes the potable water more available for the community. So it's a much more efficient use of the resources and the water resource itself to meet all the needs, both of the farming community, which provides not only environmental benefits, but jobs. Somewhere upward 3,000 jobs are produced by the agriculture industry in the city of Escondido. And it provides for the needs of these people sitting there, listening to their leaders talk about how they're going to solve the problems of the future. Grangetto Ranch's Medicine Chest is a part of this collaboration of the EGAP program, is the recycling and reuse of the urban wastewater to grow and continue to grow crops. It's the sequestering of the carbon to offset the impacts of greenhouse gases and climate change through the growing of avocados, citrus, and vines. It's providing some level of local food security within the community. And it becomes a barrier because of the moisture held within the foliage of this avocado and citrus orchards, a barrier for the protection from wildfires. It slows it down and it minimizes the spread of area wildfires in the fringes of our cities. And it provides habitat for wildlife species, reduction of heat island effect near urban environments, and improved air quality, not only through the sequestration of the greenhouse gases, but also the amount of oxygen released into the air due to the presence of photosynthesis within the orchards itself. And then preserving the agricultural resilience and the heritage of San Diego. These are just some of the tools, the medicine chest that a farm like Grangetto's offers to an urban population. And to drive it home even further, if you break it down, in 1 year, a single avocado tree can absorb as much carbon as produced by a car driven 26,000 miles. That's one tree. 2 mature avocado trees can provide enough oxygen for a family of 4 during the course of a year. A 1 acre avocado orchard removes up to 2.6 tons of carbon dioxide per year, thereby lowering the heat holding capacity of our atmosphere and cooling the planet in the process. Orchard trees lower air temperature by evaporating water through their leaves, thereby minimizing the impact of heat islands effect due to extreme temperatures. They also provide, as I mentioned earlier, habitat for area wildlife, birds, insects, what have you. Avocado roots help infiltrate and capture rainfall, increasing our groundwater supply, and also preventing the erosion and loss of our valuable topsoil. All of these simply by planting and sustaining and maintaining an avocado orchard in an urban environment. So what's the take-home message? Why must cities care about para-urban ag then? Why do we have to fight against the indifference that's crept into our society because we've isolated ourselves from the very growers and the agricultural community that exists within our boundaries? Well, there's a growing concern about water and food security today. That became heightened during COVID. And to meet increases in urban areas, the cities, to be livable and sustainable in the future, they need to maintain the natural resource base and ecosystem services in these para-urban areas surrounding cities. Changes within these areas can have a significant impact upon agricultural uses and productivity, environmental amenity, and natural habitat, supply and quality of water and energy consumption, and the atmospheric carbon sequestration. All of this goes towards supporting a livable and sustainable future, not just for farms, but for the urban environments themselves. And so what will it take to restore our lost agrarian culture in and around cities? Number one, recognize the role of healthy, vibrant agriculture communities coexisting within and near an urban environment and the importance of supporting and investing in their survival and success. 2, create a realistic strategic plan in partnership with urban leaders and farmers and nurserymen that prioritizes agricultural needs and resources as an essential part of urban planning and development process. I emphasize the word essential. Without this partnership, it's going to be extremely difficult for farms to exist. To give you an example, the avocado production in California back in the 1980s was around 76,000 acres. San Diego accounted for about 60% of all that at about 45,000 acres. And so in the early 1980s, it started to decline. Urbanization started to have its impact and competition for resources. By 2009, production was down to 24,000 acres in San Diego County. And by 2018, roughly a 10-year period, it had decreased to approximately 18,000 acres, or a 28% reduction in the amount of avocado production in San Diego County. That trend will continue if we don't form these strategic partnerships with our urban leadership. I've got number 1, it should be number 3 down there. Identify, maybe it should be number 1. Identify the financial resources and funding opportunities necessary to support existing agricultural enterprises, as well as nurture the development of new farmers and nurserymen interested in agricultural careers in San Diego County. I can't emphasize how important it is that we look to our young people who would love to be involved in agricultural careers, but we make it so difficult for them to survive and do that in an urban environment without the support, infrastructure, and community support necessary to do it. We need to pay much more attention to what it's going to take, and that'll only happen in the context of working with local government and our local leadership in the urban environment to create this kind of incubator to develop the future farmers and nurserymen to sustain our agricultural heritage. So the keys to sustaining peri-urban ag in San Diego is to recognize and compensate local farmers as practical solution providers for climate change through carbon farming and regenerative ag practices. And that regenerative ag practices goes toward protecting and supporting a healthy watershed. Quantitatively, we need to measure the current and potential benefits of local agriculture and communicate clearly and effectively these benefits to our urban leaders and citizens. I put that in a different font color because it's so absolutely critical that if we're going to ask for support, we need to be able to demonstrate what the benefits are, and we can't do it just with good wishes. We have to quantify it, and we can do that. We can do it with water savings. 1% increase in soil organic matter will literally absorb 2,000 to 2,500 gallons of water and hold it in our soil. A 1% increase in organic soil carbon. That's the kind of quantitative measurements we can make if we start to farm regeneratively and work with local communities. Financially and politically support the development of new local farmers and nurserymen and their need for access to available public land and housing. And I state public land and housing because most young farmers do not have the resources to purchase, with the land values being so high in urban areas like San Diego, the land to farm. But there's a lot of public land that's available, that could be made available to these young farmers and nurserymen that would benefit the entire urban population. We need to be looking at those opportunities. We need to monetize these benefits. When I say quantifying typically means what is the monetary value of what farming is offering. Soil organic matter, mulching, compost, biofertilizers, biochar are all ways to build up soil organic matter to capture more water and reuse it. Water conservation and improved water quality. Remember we talked about the watershed. If we have more organic matter, we have more water volume, and we also have better water quality through the filtration through that carbon. And then, of course, the atmospheric benefits. What is the value of that monetarily in a planet that's heating up as we speak? We need to collaborate and integrate across many different disciplines, both air resources, water resources, solid waste management through the use and repurposing of recycled organics, and energy utilization and how we use it. The professions that need to be working more close together, not only are the soil, but the waste hauling industry, the water board, the water authorities in the county, and agriculture itself. Urban farming and sustainable agriculture all go into supporting and preventing the disease of peri-urban agriculture. And there's a mindset change that has to occur. We need to think creatively and outside the box on how agriculture can solve local food insecurity, deliver environmental services, and reduce the impact of climate change. And we're doing that, but it needs to lead to action. Be patient in dealing and engaging with a public that has been long disconnected from their agricultural past, and be kind and tolerant of all viewpoints, regardless of their source and or the practicality of their input. All ideas and inputs must be welcome. We must be understanding and tolerant of all perceptions, because this is a learning curve that has to occur in a population that has been far too long removed from a connection with their land. So last, I'm going to conclude with why do farmers farm, and a few other points here. A quote from a very dear mentor of mine who I read religiously, Wendell Berry, wrote, "Why do farmers farm given their economic adversities on top of the many frustrations and difficulties normal to farming?" And always the answer is love. They must do it for love. Farmers farm for the love of farming. They love to watch and nurture the growth of plants and animals. And I will say it's not for everyone. We don't expect everyone to be a farmer. But for those farmers among us, they need help and they need to be nurtured as well. This is a quote from Frank Conine, and you might wonder, San Pasqual Valley Soils, who I work for, is owned by Frank Conine, who established well over 60 years ago with his father, the Conine Dairy and the San Pasqual Valley Soils in 2007. And I didn't feature Conine Dairy because we're the last of what was once over 150 dairies. So it's not exactly a model of a agricultural enterprise that's suited for coexisting within an urban environment. In fact, the statistics basically support the fact that it can't be sustained. We are unique in that we are sharing land owned and purchased by the city of San Diego, the San Pasqual Valley Ag Preserve. If it wasn't for that preserve and our ability to have access to reasonably priced water and our farming operation, we wouldn't be here. And the diversification, I would highly recommend and encourage you to go to the current issue of the Farm Bureau's San Diego Grown publication, the #1 for 2022, where Frank Conine is featured and interviewed on what it took and what it continues to take for him to survive as a dairy, the last remaining dairy in the county. But when asked about why he farms, he said, "My joy and motivation from succeeding in the dairy business in an area where other people left because the challenges just became too difficult, or opportunities elsewhere became more enticing. That is the challenge that inspires me to get out of bed every morning." And so if you're not up to that kind of challenge, probably farming is not for you, but certainly we should support those that do rise to that challenge. And then the farmers and nurserymen among us, our lifeline to a quality of life. San Diego County's quality of life depends on the quality and health of our soils and water supply, and the ag community that creates, stewards, and maintains this health. This requires everyone, especially our urban communities, to take on and share in the responsibility of providing what is needed to not only sustain our current ag producers, but to grow a much greater awareness of how essential a society built on agrarian ideals is to our future survival and that of our planet. And I'd like to end with this quote from Eddie Grangetto, because I think it sums up so much of what I feel. The the value is of preserving our agricultural heritage. He stated, the ranch not only provides a wonderful place to live, it also provides a daily reminder that nature will always be in control. This partnership with the natural forces that shape everyone's lives keeps us humble and optimistic that the future will always be better. And so with that, I encourage you to engage wherever and as often as you can to grow San Diego's agriculture and its agrarian value system. As the #1 small farm county in the United States, we need to fight to maintain that, sustain it, and hopefully even grow it. So I offer now time. Hopefully we got about 15 minutes for any questions that any of the listeners may have that you'd like to ask, and be glad to answer.
Any questions? Oh.
No questions? I know this will be taped if you want to go back and review any of the points I made. Certainly there's a lot of work to be done. I highly encourage you to continue to access the resources that are being made available through the San Diego County Farm Bureau, including a link to EGAP. And if you're living in the Escondido area, even if you're not, certainly to engage with that organization in their efforts to preserve agriculture, not only in Escondido, but in the entire county itself. Everything has a way of filtering out into the greater community, and I invite you to become engaged in whatever organizations where you know you can address and do your part to encourage and support the continued growth and vitality of agriculture here in this phenomenal county that we call home. Any other questions here? Yes.
I had a quick question. This is Allison Papp. Well, first of all, thank you so much for this presentation. It was very informative and really great examples. I'm wondering if you could give us a little bit more detail around your vision about developing how we would be able to determine what metrics that we would want to track and how they would get tracked, and where, like, who would really be that source of truth for the record keeping.
Right. Yeah, you're talking about the validity of the claims we make about the benefits of what agriculture offers an urban population. And that's a fantastic question. And there are tools that are available. Certainly we can measure soil. One of the most simple ones, I'm going to be participating in a California Department of Food and Agriculture Healthy Soils demonstration field day tomorrow, where I'll be talking about the value of the compost that they applied to this avocado orchard as part of that grant from the CDFA to encourage more growers to start utilizing the local sourced recycled organics to build soil health and to capture that water, that soil water. Remember I said a 1% increase if we measure just soil organic matter. And one of the things I talked about in the last presentation last month that I didn't go into in any detail is a statewide mandate to divert recycled organics from the landfills that became effective in January of this year. Up to 75% of all of organics they're hoping to divert by 2025 from landfills to minimize greenhouse gas production through the production of methane when we bury our food waste and our landscape waste. So this bill, Senate Bill 1383, if you're not familiar with it, go there. There's going to be all kinds of efforts to help every city meet these procurement requirements to not only divert the organic material, but to utilize it locally. And one of the best ways to utilize it, the organics are, we're looking at increasing the capacity of our composting operations around the state to increase the amount of composted organic material, both food waste and landscape, and divert it to build healthy soils. So there are a number of healthy soils programs going on right now, and one of the key metrics is simply to measure soil organic matter increase which then can be extrapolated to how much more water we can absorb, how much more infiltration, how much less runoff we're getting, how much less erosion we're getting. So you can measure all of these. One of the key challenges is going to be to develop a professional group of practitioners that can help monitor these benefits. That's one of the big gaps in this, is that we have not been measuring it. We have not been collecting the data consistently on a local level to be able to make the case, to verify the value. And not only the value to water conservation and capture, but to the amount of carbon being sequestered and pulled out of the environment. There are some formulas by the US EPA, and there's a program called COMET, C-O-M-E-T, that they use to extrapolate how much carbon, based on how much organic matter you're applying to soil, how much carbon out of the atmosphere can we sequester and restore, if you will, back into the soil and cool the planet in the process. So that there's a lot going on. Much of it's covered on CalRecycle's website on Senate Bill 1383, but you're going to start to see more and more efforts to quantify the benefits of simply building soil health. And that's instrumental in one of the big organizations right now doing a tremendous amount, not only of research in this area, is the University of California in cooperation with the California Department of Food and Agriculture. And this year alone, they allocated over $67 million to support funds for growers to start doing more cover cropping and compost applications to agricultural lands throughout the state. We need to do that not only on our farms, but we need to do it in all of our landscapes. The Model Water Efficient Landscape Ordinance is built around the addition of compost and organic material mulches to our urban soils to build this capacity up for absorbing water, minimizing erosion, and sequestering carbon. So there are a lot of efforts. Keep your eyes out, start looking at the internet for more resources as they become available, but certainly a good place to start would be the CDFA and with your local San Diego County Resource Conservation District. And the Farm Bureau also has a program on climate smart farming as well. There are resources available on the Farm Bureau website as well. So hopefully that answers it. Much of it's tied to the ability to monitor certain parameters involving soil health and water holding capacity of soils. Hope that answered your question.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff going on. We just need a lot of young professionals trained in soil science, in water management, watershed management, all of these things. And certainly it would really help if we had a lot of farmers come forward and we generate more farmers to help with the sequestration and the water holding capacity of our soils.
Greg, can I ask you a question and add on to that too?
Yes.
This is Joel Kramer at the Conservation District. It's really wonderful to see this, and I guess I expected more of a technical lecture because you're a PhD and you have a whole career in this, but to see a lifetime of a career in this, but to see you put the cultural context of it really brings it home. So I'd love to ask you a question about that. But just touching on the monitoring, I feel like one of the themes here was that we're working separately on these issues. And with the monitoring, there's lots of different groups that have been doing monitoring. We have, Foodshed has the coastal routes that you mentioned, and it would be really cool to see a database that combines that existing data. And we would be glad to contribute to that.
That's awesome. Thank you, Joel. And yeah, when I started off this presentation, I talked about when I became the farm advisor in Santa Clara County, I had all this technical information about plant diseases. I was poorly prepared for the cultural disease of the loss of the farms that I kept seeing going by the wayside because we hadn't paid attention to that. And that was the reason for this presentation. I can speak all day long about how to create soil health and protect plants from plant disease and alter the environment in favor of the plant versus the pathogen. But we need to focus more on the disease that's affecting the survival of farms in urban areas. We need these farms in these urban areas more than ever. All urban areas that ultimately were established connected to agricultural communities. All of America was at one time an agrarian society. And due to the low cost of fuels and what have you, we developed a kind of out of sight, out of mind culture of bringing in our food from areas that we were not connected with. And I think we owe it to ourselves and the quality of life in the urban populations to reclaim that heritage and that connection to our agrarian past. And I think if we do so, we're all going to be a lot better for it. But I
wanted to ask, you mentioned societal indifference, and I like that idea too, that people just don't know the value of it. But do you anticipate any direct opposition to some of these proposals to really strengthen agriculture, and where would you see that opposition coming?
You're going to see it from people that don't share the same values as you do in regards to using the land to grow crops. I'll tell you right now, at the dairy, our day starts at 5 a.m. in the morning. And fortunately, we're far enough away from it because we're in an ag preserver from residential neighborhoods. But just the sound of tractors plowing a field or harvesting the forage for the cattle can really be disruptive to some residents, and they'll complain. So you have to start addressing things like the right to farm ordinances, that when you move into an area, there has to be a communication with the people moving in that they are willing to carry some of the responsibility of supporting that farm with all the noises and smells that go with it, particularly with a dairy farm. Yeah, I think there will be opposition, Joel, to be perfectly frank. I think it's in the nature of human interactions. There are some things, and we have to, that's why I argue for tolerance and for listening and for trying to find the common ground and for them understanding what you're bringing to the table. If people don't understand all the other benefits, then a noisy tractor is just that. It's a noisy tractor that doesn't allow them to get a good night's sleep or whatever, or good morning sleep. And they're going to fight you on it until you take the time to show them what you're doing, what the benefits are, and why you're doing it, and what they gain from it. Everything is risk benefit in life, and we have to weigh the risks of what it takes to be a successful farm with the benefits that come from it, and that'll be an ongoing challenge. I think that won't be going away anytime soon. We have to be prepared to have those conversations, though, and I think that's the key. We can't. I remember when I used to go to the Farm Bureau meetings up in Santa Clara County. The growers would just be so angry about all the environmentalists and all this and all that, and I had to remind them. I said, "You people make your living as environmentalists, as caring for the environment. Your very survival depends on caring for the environment. Stop labeling people as environmentalists and claim that as a part of your DNA and part of your value system, and find the common ground to have a conversation that is not divisive, but shows the commonality that we all share." And there's nothing that brings people together more than food production, agriculture. Nothing. We all share we are all involved in agriculture by the very act of eating. It's a circular economy, and the end of the agricultural circular economy is the consumer who eats the food. Therefore, everybody that eats has a responsibility for accepting their role in helping maintain and grow a vital, healthy agriculture, particularly, in my opinion, in these para-urban environments, because we have so much to offer urban populations. I hope that answered some of your question. It's a tough one, but yeah, we will have our the challenges aren't going to go away, but you have to just be calm, level-headed, be sympathetic to the concerns of urban population, and have that conversation and engage. And I honestly believe people are very responsive when they detect that you care about them. You know, we really need to take care of each other, and probably the best way to take care of anybody is to feed them. And one way to feed them is to support agriculture. Any other questions? It's 4 o'clock. I think we're done. Thank you all so much for joining, and I hope you got a little out of it. And I hope it encourages you to engage and to be part of what I think is a vision for the future that we need to reclaim. It is our heritage, and it's one well worth fighting for. So thank you all, and good luck.
Thank you so much, Craig.
Thank you,
You're
Greg.
welcome. You're welcome.